Canon is 100% king of the vlog cam because of its big sensor. But each of us have our own priority. So today we will dive into the factor you need to consider. The first one, bokeh and lens. What is bokeh? Bokeh is like background blur. You might think, okay, it seems bokeh is something related to the aperture. That is true, but if you watch this video, it shows you even in the same aperture for full frame, APS-C and micro four thirds, the background blur is actually different. The crop factor also need to be considered. So if you're a super fan of the bokeh effect, this is something you need to consider. Okay, what about the lens? Well, if you are getting a camera, you might need at least 3 lenses. So the first one is, like right now, I'm using 10mm on APS-C, and this is the view you can get. Let's say I want to super zoom to that tree, or maybe that Ferris wheel. Well, in that case, I will need at least like 100-200mm. Okay, what about one lens for all? Well, if anyone told you that, I would call him a liar, because usually the one for all starts from 18 to somewhere, and I can assure you 18 for APS-C is definitely not enough. And it applies the same for the full frame micro four third, because it's difficult to find a lens which can cover the both sides, so you will need at least 2. So what about the third lens? Well, the third lens is mainly about the aperture, because usually for the wide or super zoom, the aperture isn't too low, like you won't get a 1.8 to 2.8, so you have to get another special lens for the super background blur if you need. So it doesn't really matter which camera system you want. It's really better to check the lens first so you can know what kind of lens you might need, or if you can get or not, and also the price. The second combination is stabilization and focus. Usually for micro four thirds, because the sensor is smaller, so usually it has better stabilization, and usually the machine comes with the embodied stabilization. For APS-C and full frame, yes, you can get that, but usually it costs you actual money. But that shouldn't be a thing you need to worry too much, because for those guys who don't have the IBS, you can still use the camera. And there is a trick you can use, like
these locked-out shots let you, the viewer, forget about the camera for a second and focus on what I'm saying. And then the handheld shots like this enable you to sort of feel the spontaneity and the urgency that is whatever's taking place in my daily life.
And for focus system, Canon and Sony claimed to have the best focus system, but that actually depends, because for other camera you have manual focus. It depends on your usage again, and also the sensitivity, the speed to switch. It also can be set in camera. So I wouldn't say that is a thing you need to worry too much, unless you're just a Canon or Sony fanboy, which I am. And I just can't accept that for GH5 and GH6, they have super amazing video capability, but the focus system is just Another thing I don't want to discuss is about the specs and the log system. So usually for micro four thirds, because the sensor is smaller, it's easier to handle the data. Usually it will have better specs like 6K oversample, 10-bit, stuff like that. But I'm also talking about the full frame and APS-C. Do you really need the oversampled 4K, 6K, or even 8K? Because after all, you need a computer to handle that, and maybe you just don't need spend the actual money for the actual thing you need, because usually it's just 300 price more, you get something more, and then 100 price more, you get something more. So when is the end? I think it's more about what you really need, and also the post-production, the system you need to work together with it. And about the log, it's something relates to the color grading, and the color grading isn't that easy. So first you need to do the color correction, and then you can do color grading, because if you just want to play with the color, maybe the standard color profile, you can already adjust it a little bit. And personally, I get a camera with a log system because I just wanted to try how far I can achieve. So that is me. The last thing I want to talk about is the manual system. The reason I want to mention that is a lot of guys saying Sony system, the kind of crap, the manual isn't logical. But the thing is, for any camera, the setting like almost 100 pages. So the logical solution is actually you need to customize the manual. And by doing that, almost any camera is the same. I mean, at least. So the other thing is about the setting of camera. Right now I'm using the R7 because for a lot of other cameras, although you have C1, C2, you can just save the factors for photos. But for cameras, if you want to change different frame rate, different resolution, using log or not, that will be complicated. You have to switch it very often, and by diving into the manual, it's really complicated. But if you have the like C1, C2, C3, at least it can save you a lot of time. And not to mention, for some cameras, when you switch to photo, all the savings you saved for the camera, it will lose. Definitely, you don't want that happens to you if you're using the camera for the vlog stuff. Okay, so what's my recommendation? First one, budget. Think about the price you want to pay for the camera and the camera lens and other accessories. And second one, decide full frame, APS-C and micro four third, what system you want. Because For Micro Four Third, it's kind of when you walk around, you can carry it with you and doing the talk. For APS-C, it's kind of in middle. For full frame, it's the glory. But if you want in-body stabilization and stuff like that, considering the lens, the price will be quite high. And my recommendation is go to the internet, go to YouTube, search for the downside of the camera. If you can accept the downside of the camera, then you have no problem to go. And so where to check? I would recommend you to check the Camera Conspiracy channel. He does not only talk about the camera, he also brings it out, do the shooting and compare each system. And also he goes into the detail. So basically that's it for me today, and see you in the next one.